Shalom, shalom. My name is Sophie Lavender, and in this week's video I'm going to tell you the story of how I was somewhat surprised to find out I was autistic and get diagnosed. I'm also going to look into some of the possible benefits you can have when you have a diagnosis. Let's go. Now, before I start this video off properly, I do want to quickly say that getting a diagnosis takes a long time. There is a long waiting list, and due to government budget cuts to mental health services, getting a diagnosis seems to be becoming a privilege. So if you are going to self-diagnose, you are valid, first of all, and thank you as well for coming to my channel and doing your research, because a lot of mental health stuff can overlap, so you really have to dig in with the reading and the talking and the watching just to be sure. Now let's begin. So the story before I was diagnosed with autism kind of goes back a few years. Now, if you've seen my TED Talk, cheeky plug there, you will know that I went through a difficult time growing up. Trauma happened, and then afterwards, because of what I'd been through, I had to have somebody from CAMHS come and speak to me once a week to kind of see how my mental health is going, because like I said, it was quite traumatic. It was, and looking back, I think, how the hell did I survive that? I shouldn't even be here. But yeah, so I had a lovely guy called Lee come and see me every week, and we talk about stuff, and I watched a documentary on TV about OCD. I think it's John Richardson from the 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown. He did an OCD documentary, and I related a lot to some of the stuff in that documentary. So I said to Lee, I was like, before you go, can I have an OCD test? Can I have an OCD diagnosis? Because I definitely relate to some stuff here. And Lee was like, I think you have something else. Okay. I was like, I'm going to give you the wired monkey test. And I'm like, okay. So off he went. But he didn't see me for 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, I have 2 weeks to find out what the hell this wired monkey test is, because this is confusing. And I took it very literally. I literally googled wired monkey test, and on Google I came across a study done by a scientist, and it was a study on love and attachment, and it was basically, in a nutshell, studying how we can get attached to people who push us away because of some love and attachment thing. I used to know the study off the top of my head because I'm a huge psychology nerd, but it's been a year since I've read up on it, so if you are interested in reading up on it, just Google it, it's fascinating. But anyway, Lee came back to my house and he was like, here's the Wired Monkey test, and it was literally a printout from the Wired magazine website with an advertising banner for an online game called Spank the Monkey. That was it. And I was like, girl, I was so confused. I was like, what is this? And then at the top it said AQ test, autism quotient, and I was like, oh boy, what does this mean? But I did the AQ test. He kind of took it away and scored it up, and it was like, okay, yeah, we're gonna get you in to see Rachel. And like, Rachel's the big psychologist at the CAMHS place where I went to. I don't know if she's still there. I know Lee's definitely retired. He retired after he saw me. I scared him away. Then started the wait, and I waited a few months. My 16th birthday passed, and I was so absorbed. It was my final exams at school, so I'd gone through pretty much my whole school life not getting any support for being autistic and ADHD, and that I was playing it on hard mode the whole time, playing the school on challenge mode. That's what it was. So we got to Rachel's office eventually, And I just remember speaking to her about stuff like how I feel. Then she had to speak to my mum for a while. She wanted to make sure that I got like the best support possible, because she's like that as a mum. She's like, you're gonna get the best support and I'm gonna fight for it. Which I'm really lucky to have a mum like that, because not everybody does. And she wrote a novel about me as a kid, about what I was like growing up and things like that, so that she could pass it to Rachel and be like, you want to ask what she's like growing up? Here you go, have a read, enjoy. You might want to pull up a chair and grab a cup of tea as while you're at it. And they had I remember them having this like the longest conversation ever. I don't think I was allowed in the room, I don't remember being, but they were just having this huge long ass conversation all about me. And I knew it was about me, so that didn't really help my anxiety the whole time I was in the waiting room like, But yeah, then I went back into the room, and this is where it gets a little bit interesting, because there was other little tests to do, like random stuff, like really random stuff that, looking back, I'm trying to think of, you know, using my armchair expertise knowledge on psychology, trying to guess of what that particular thing was trying to see, and what kind of autistic trait were they investigating by doing this little random thing. So the things I can remember, because like I'm 23 now, and this all happened when I was 16. Yeah, it's definitely a few years ago. So we had the bag of random stuff, and what that was, it was a little pouch full of the most randomest stuff ever. I think it was a feather, a marble, a cube, a paper clip. I want to say battery, but it's because I'm looking at a battery. But you get what I mean, like loads of like little random stuff. And she was like, I want you to make a story out of this. Here's the basic plot idea. Make a story out of a marble, a feather, and a paper clip, and a cube. Okay. And she was like, how do you think they're feeling? Alright. I mean, I do have, it sounds really weird, but I do have empathy towards inanimate objects. I mean, this object literally has its own personality. That's what I mean. Like every little cuddly bambino in my room has a personality, and it needs to be cared for. They have feelings, right? I know that is something that other autistic people kind of do. Like, you can't, like, your shoes have feelings, so they have to be in pairs all the time, otherwise they'll be upset. I've never really said that out loud before, but it's definitely a thing. The other thing I remember is the children's book. We had a children's picture book. I got one about frogs, a flying frog invasion. Iconic, we love frogs. I had to read the book page by page, but I also had to describe in as much detail as possible what the pictures were and how literally I was describing them. I think that's what we're trying to see, how literally I would describe something. The other one was a picture of a house. You could see inside the rooms of this house. It was like a big house with loads of little rooms in it. And the idea was to pick the room in the house that you would like to be in the most. And each house had something chaotic going on. Like, there was a crocodile in the bath, there was an elephant in the kitchen, there was monkeys in the living room. You get the idea. There was parties going on in other rooms, and you had to pick the room that you'd like to go in. And then at the very top of the house, it showed like a loft conversion that was converted into a relaxation zone, is what I'm calling it. It had a telescope, it had moons and stars, it had bean bags and fairy lights, and the vibe was on point for the kind of environment that I like to be in. So I picked that room, and they were like, well, why do you like that room? Why not the crocodile in the bathtub? Wouldn't you want to see a crocodile in the bathtub or an elephant in the kitchen? Like, why would you pick the room with no animals in it, no dancing, no singing, no music? And I was just like, because it looks calm, it looks quiet, it looks peaceful, and I like spaces like that. And I think that test was to see kind of what environments do I feel safe in. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I know when I went to Nottingham Uni once to take part in a test for autistic people. I had a similar thing there where there was a big map full of stuff. I had to describe the pictures on the map, which is a bit like the picture book situation, and then I had to pick a destination on the map which I would feel better in. So if you do go for an autism diagnosis, I don't know if it's different for children's, teenagers and adults, but those are some of the little things that they get you to do other than the AQ test and the talking to a family member on whether you are like autistic or not. Which leads us on to talking about after the diagnosis. There was like an afterwards process in a way where the school was notified, it was put on my medical records, so like all the staff at the local doctor's surgery was aware and my school was aware. And then when I went into school, I did find that some things did change, some things didn't change. My school was not the best. The biggest benefits to having an autism diagnosis that I have found is in education, the education system, because you do get access to a lot of stuff that you wouldn't necessarily have if you wasn't autistic. Like, I only had like 4 exams left at this point, but for those exams I got an extra 15 minutes. I got to be in a quiet room with only like a couple of other people. I was away from the anxiety-inducing environment of an exam hall. There was no more exam halls after that. I got to go into nice, quiet spaces, and I got extra time to process the questions on the paper. So having the extra time in an exams was a lifesaver, and I actually found that when I did get the extra support, my grades went from a predicted B to actually being A's. And in one subject I was only predicted a C and I got an A. But another big benefit as well that I found to having an autism diagnosis is, as an adult and with having chronic illnesses and stuff, I find that when I go to a doctor's appointment, before I enter the room and I'm seeing a doctor for the first time, you know how they like look through your notes before you go in? It will say on my medical records that I'm autistic. So the doctors are aware before I go into a room. Like, I don't have to say I'm autistic. They can read that I'm autistic and they can adapt to my needs and what's best for me. And I found that has been really beneficial, and I'm really lucky with the doctors I have, because the GP that I have and the consultants that I have at the hospital, I feel like they've really gone the extra mile to make me feel safe and to make me feel like I'm understood. Another thing as well, benefit to having an autism diagnosis, is that it ruled a lot of stuff out, and I wouldn't have been able to get the level of care that I actually need because I'm autistic. In a way, self-diagnosis is valid and I support it, and I understand that it's a privilege and it's a struggle, especially as an adult. It is so hard. I had to really fight for my ADHD diagnosis. Like, it took me until I was about 21, 22 to finally get diagnosed with ADHD. But the key thing that I'm trying to say here is that so many stuff in mental health can and does overlap, which is why it's important to really do your research, speak to people, and try speak to a doctor. Even if it's just your GP, get yourself on the waiting list. Get the ball rolling with that. You probably will have to wait forever, and you will probably have to nag. But by having an assessment on your mental health, it could rule out other mental health conditions. You might have a suspicion that you are one thing and turns out you might be another thing, or you might have both. Since my answer has been provided, I have found the beautiful autism community and I've made so many friends, and it's definitely one of the best things that's ever happened to me. But I really want to hear from your experiences, so please comment down below what you think. And you can also like and subscribe. Like I said, we do these videos every week. Let's get together, let's have some fun. And if you're interested on hearing more from me, you can follow me on Twitter, TikTok and Instagram at Shalom Lavender. It's been lovely sharing my story with you. But until next week, may the stars bring you joy and the galaxy bring you love. I love you.